Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the raft. Hold on. Yes. Welcome back to the raft by S.A. Boarding. I'm gonna be reading again on page halfway and we're on the end of page 19. So here we go. Meanwhile, the raft continued to leak water, and I knew I was losing the strength to bail. If me and Max continued as we were, the raft would flounder and we would end up in the ocean. Our combined weight, my 115, his probably 165, 170, was too much. Would there be a difference with only my weight in the raft? Would it stop taking on water and stay afloat? We had to stay afloat, stay in the raft. The alternative was not worth thinking about. No, worse than that. The alternative was unbearable. I would not survive if I had to float in the water. Once more, I laid my head on his chest. I held his head, which was definitely not warm. I rubbed at it, trying to keep the circulation back, telling myself that's why it seemed stiff. No. I turned my face into his chest. He smelled salty, like the ocean, with just a hint of choline of some sort. You're going to be fine. I can't be alone. I stayed that way for so long that there was time for several inches of water to gather in the raft, making me so far behind in the bailing that catching up might not be possible. My options seemed to be steering toward one. The one I dreaded the most. Chapter 20. Holding Max's hands, I leaned back, pulling him forward. He barely budged, and I knew that wouldn't work. So I let go, and he fell back where he'd been. The life vest he'd worn off the plane had sat in the corner, kneeling in front. Stop! Shh! Sorry about that. The life vest he'd worn on the plane was still in the corner. Kneeling in front of him, I struggled to put the vest on him. My voice was as calm and smoothing as I can make it. It will just be for a while until I get the raft bailed. I won't leave you, I promise. Rolling him onto his side, I got close behind him and pushed. The bottom was slippery, so he slid easily over the edge. Using all my strength, I managed to get Max's left arm and leg over the side. He was half in, half out, sprawled like a big bug on the side of my raft. My vision was blurry. Was I crying? I'm sorry. The plan was to row him the rest of the way over, so he might be face up in the water just until I could empty the raft. A few minutes at most, if I saw a shark, I'd get him back inside somehow. If there was a nylon line on the raft, there was a nylon line on the raft, and I tied that to his vest. Life vest. I won't let you go, I promise. He didn't wake up, and he didn't hear my promise. Without less weight in the raft and bailing like crazy, I managed to catch up, and there didn't seem to be any water coming in, which lightened my mood. Then I looked over at Max's back, yellow and round like a fat cylinder in a rolled-up top. It had a rolled top with a black plastic buckle. If there was something in that could help us, what if there was something in that could help us? If there was, he would have used it at first night, wouldn't he? But then, as I thought about it, what could have possibly been in there that could help us? Maybe food, a cell phone, something. Reaching out, I held the bag for a moment, considering the bag was private property. It belonged to Max. Opening it without his permission would be wrong. I untied the buckle and then told myself I should put it back. Instead, I unrolled the top and pulled the zipper. Chapter 21. Slowly, I unfolded a sheer of papers before I started reading. I smoothed the creases with my hand. The top page was the manifest for our flight. Larry was listed on top, then Max, then the cargo. I flipped through the pages, not sure what I was looking for. Something nagged at me as I scanned the pages. Then it hit me. Where was my name? My name might not have been typed like the rest. There hadn't been time. It might be in handwriting. I flipped through the pages again, looking for handwritten items. Looking for the words Robbie Michelle. But other than signatures, Larry's and the guy in charge of loadings, there wasn't any handwritten anywhere. Anything handwritten anywhere. Again, I flipped, I scanned, I pored over every page until my eyes blurred and I couldn't find my name. But I still couldn't find my name. I ran through that night of the flight, trying to recall every detail. I'd fallen asleep in the lounge. Larry had come and gotten me. He asked me something. What? My breath shallowed and quickened as I tried to remember. The papers shook in my hands. He'd asked something about paperwork. Had he mentioned Max? I thought I remembered Larry saying his name. Was Max supposed to do my paperwork and he forgot? My breath caught in my throat. That was one thing I knew for sure. I had never stepped on a scale that evening, which meant I had never gotten weighed and neither had my bags. I let the papers fall into my lap as I covered my face with both hands. My weight plus the weight of my bags were all pounds over that G1 that could carry. My weight plus the weight of my bags were all pounds over what the G1 could carry with one engine. I should have said something. I had never stepped a foot on that plane before without getting weighed. Even when we flew in a relatively empty plane from Midway to Honolulu. But I had been groggy from sleeping, anxious to go home, worried about the flight. I dropped my hands and stared out at the horizon. Had my extra weight and the weight of my bags brought us down? What did I know for sure? Basically, that my 115 pounds never got recorded, and neither did my bags, and they were stuffed in. Probably close to 75 pounds in total, which added up to almost 200 pounds too heavy for the one remaining engine. Grabbing the papers again, I looked for my name. They could have estimated, right? Maybe they just didn't list my name. Maybe they just added the estimate weight of me and my bags to cargo. Or maybe they had taken off something that weighed the same as me and my bags, but had not written it down. Larry had written my weight down for other flights. He might have known what to estimate, even added a few pounds for a concussion. Even added a few pounds for a cushion, just to be sure. I nodded. Absolutely. That made much more sense. Larry was too smart to make a mistake like that. Feeling better, I thought of another scenario. They could have weighed my bags when I was asleep and brought them back. I wouldn't have even known. That had to be it. They flew so much, they would never make a mistake like that. So, even if my weight was on there, even if I hadn't been too much for one engine, there was one thing. There was one other thing. One thing that might be worst fact of all. For all my rationalization, I couldn't explain anyway. I couldn't explain it anyway. My name wasn't on the manifest. Chapter 22. If my name was not on the list, then nobody knew I was on that flight, except Larry and Max. But Larry is gone and Max is with me. The flight manager, the bald guy filling in the night, he knew, right? I breathed out and set the papers on my lap. But that night had been crazy, people running around. He didn't know me and only sent me to Larry, and that had not actually given me the go-ahead. When I talked to him, I didn't even have my bags with me. All I asked him was where Suzanne was. For all he knew, I was just there to see her, not to get on a plane. And all the loaders had already left when I got on the plane. It was dark. Nobody saw me except on no one saw me get on except for Larry and Max. I folded the papers, unable to look at them anymore, and shoved them back in the bag. Next, I found a laminated card, laminated survival at sea. It was a list of items in addition to a bunch of small type. On the top of the list was the heading Remember. I couldn't help but picture some grandma lady admonishing me with a raised finger. Robbie, now remember. Do not drink seawater. Oops, I imagine I had a few gallons of that first night. Do not drink salt water. Oops, I imagine I had a few gallons that first night when I fell in the water. Do not drink urine. Wasn't planning to. Do not drink alcohol. Do not smoke. These two are just stupid and I breathed out a half-hearted duh. Do not eat unless water is available. That didn't make much sense. If food presents itself, believe me, I'm going to eat it. The next item on the card said the two biggest causes of death in sea wrecks were drowning, been there, almost done that, and hypothermia. I hoped it was a warm enough time of the year to avoid that. I hadn't been chilled since the first night and day. Plus, I figured that was a bigger danger if you didn't have a raft and had to be in the water the whole time. Stop! Which, as I kept reading, it seemed being in an inflatable raft as I was actually the best way to survive at sea. Good to know that I was doing something right. The other things on the card weren't all applicable. One was about getting away from a sinking ship because it could suck you down. Another was about an oil slick from a plane or ship because it could light up. There was a whole paragraph about swimming underwater to escape the fire. Well, that was one problem I hadn't had, thank God for small favors. My plane crashed, and alas, there wasn't a ferry oil slick to deal with. I kept reading, and the next section was about dehydration. In order to reduce loss of water through sweat, soak your clothes in the sea and wring them out. I groaned all the time wasted trying to get my clothes dry. But be aware that too much of this method of cooling can result in saltwater boils and rashes. What was a saltwater boil? I didn't really want to find out. Be careful not to get to the bottom of the raft. Be careful not to get the bottom of the raft wet. The draft had never been dry. In Arctic waters, old sea ice may be used for water, I sighed. There wasn't exactly any glaciers floating around me. You may get water from fish. Drink the aqueous fluid found along the spine and in the eyes of large fish. Ew, I would have to be desperate for that to happen, that's for sure. Watch the clouds and be ready for any chance of rain. Keep the tarpaulin ready for catching water. That might be nice if I had a stupid tarpaulin. Apparently, survival at sea people assume you would be equipped with things needed in order to survive at sea. Idiots. I shoved the card back in the ditty bag without reading any more. Looking further, I found a red single-subject spiral notebook curved to the shape of a ditty bag. I glanced at the words on the cover, frowned and banged the pages. They were full of handwriting, but was definitely an invasion of privacy. If Max wanted me to know what was in there, he would tell me. I glanced out at him, his face still seen. Still, I put the notebook back without reading any of it. Inside the ditty bag was one more thing, something red. I reached in and pulled it out. I whooped when I saw what it was. Page 23. Despite my major thirst, my mouth began watering immediately. A king-size bag of Skittles. My gaze went to Max. I swallowed. Would he share when he woke up? He didn't owe me anything. He already saved my life. He could have told me the last night, hey, we're adrift to sea, but I have Skittles. Taste the rainbow. My heart beat faster as I licked my lips. Taste the rainbow. He had plenty of time to tell me about them. Taste the rainbow. The truth was he had been hiding the only food on the raft from me. Taste the rainbow. Screw you, Max. Carefully spreading my sweatshirt on my lap, I gently tore open the bag of Skittles and shook them out onto my shirt. At first, I could only stare as my heart pounded, then I counted them, 107 altogether. Sorting them into piles by color with a tremendous hand, I counted again. 13 red, 23 yellow, 22 orange, 32 green, 17 purple. I didn't like purple Skittles. It tasted like really bad grape juice. Max could have all of those. I would fight him for the green and the orange, though. They were my favorites. There was one deformed orange Skittle. I didn't think Max would mind whether I ate the bad one. Did I even care what Max did or didn't mind? My hesitation was momentary before I popped it in my mouth and sucked, trying to make the fruitness last as long as possible. The rest I put back in the Skittle bag one by one, then put them into the ditty bag and zipped it up before replacing it. Stop! Stop. Dumb. He'd known as soon as he saw the Skittles bag that I'd been in his stuff. But I didn't really care. My mouth was still taste of orange candy. I opened my hand. My fingers, still wet and wrinkled, had the colors of the rainbow all over them. I licked my palm, then one at a time I sucked my fingers in my mouth and sucked, savoring, and getting rid of the evidence. My butt was wet. Time to bail again. Chapter 24. I managed to clear just about all the water out of the raft, probably not dry enough for the survival at sea people. But hey, it was the best I could do. The sun beat down and I put the damp hoodie on top of my head to keep the hot rays off my face. Max's face was uncovered, so I took his t-shirt, soaked it from lying in the wet bottom of the raft, and draped it over him. Hopefully it wouldn't result in any saltwater boils. I shut my eyes and before I knew it was waking up. My throat was dry and my stomach still rumbled. And the sun was still up, but lower in the sky, and once again I was sitting in water. I leaned over to check on Max. He was gone. Max, shading my eyes, I scanned the ocean around the raft. Max, oh my god, what have I done? Max! I screamed his name until I was hoarse and the water in the raft had gotten too deep to ignore any longer. I started some frantic bailing as I kept calling for Max and my thoughts raced. Max! He's in the life jacket. He won't sink. He'll be okay. Max! He'll wake up and come after me. Max! The current would bring him down. The current would bring him the same way, would it? Wouldn't he be here if that was true? Won't it? The current would bring him the same way, won't it? Wouldn't he be here if that was true? I shook my thoughts away as I could concentrate on the bailing. Then I could focus on getting Max back. Soon it became clear that my efforts were not going to be enough. I was not going to be able to bail enough to empty out the raft. The best thing that would be to get out, flip the raft and empty the water, then get back in. There was another life jacket, which meant I would have to stay afloat by hanging on to the raft. Steeling myself, I put one foot over the side and into the water and froze. There was no way. I could not get in that water. I pulled my foot back in and sat down. The water in the raft continued to rise beneath me. I knew there was no choice, so I stuck my foot out over the side again. This time, it stayed over a few moments before I pulled it back in. No way I was getting out of that raft on my own. I pulled my foot back in and sat down. No way I was getting out of that raft on my own. I would stay there until it sank beneath the waves, taking me with it for good. I needed something to make me feel better, something to make me feel like I wasn't stuck in a raft by myself in the middle of the God's forsaken ocean. Grabbing Max's bag, I unzipped it, snatching out the bag of Skittles, shaking some into my palm. I slammed them into my mouth, chewing, tasting every flavor, not even minding the grape. As soon as I swallowed those, I drowned another handful before noticing the bag was half empty. My mouth dropped open. Oh my God, what was I doing? The candy belonged to Max, and for the time being, at least, it was our only food. Was I going crazy from the sun and thirst? Was this how long it had taken for the survivors of the Neapolis to lose it? Get a grip, Robbie, get a grip. I shoved the Skittles back in the ditty bag and tossed it to the other side of the raft. My chin quivered and my lips curled as a Gurruta whale escaped My chin quivered and my lips curled into a Gurruta whale escaped between them. Sobs bubbled up, great groveling, gasping sobs that cracked my whole body, complete with tears that blurred my vision so that my whole reality was messed up. So I screamed, shouting to the sky, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be anywhere but I want to be anywhere but here. Chapter 25. No longer in the raft, no longer 15, no longer in command of my world. I was but 5. A little kid of 5, and I'd woken from the hideous. A little kid of 5, and I'd awoken from hideous nightmare and wanted my mother, wanted her to take away everything that was bad. With a fist on either side of my face, I squenched my eyes at, Mommy, where are you? Where are you? My eyes shut. Mommy, where are you? Where are you? Rocking back and forth, I struggled to get the words out amidst the sobs and gasps and the shudders. Mommy, I want you. I wanted her to answer me. I want you. Just come and get me. I said it over and over until the words turned quiet, a desperate plea. Just come and get me. Please, Mommy, please. My voice cracked on the last, come and get me, Mommy. And then I could only think it. Mommy, please come get me. But she didn't. Please, someone, please tell me something worse. And that's when I knew no one could tell me something worse, because there wasn't anything. I was alone in a raft at sea. 26. It was all on me. Everything was on me. As much as I hoped for it, my mom wasn't coming to get me. I was the only help I was getting, and I needed to chill out before I lost it completely. The Skittles rose in my throat, and I swallowed, forcing them to stay down. No way I was throwing up food. The only food there was, get a grip. I have to get a grip. Think, Robbie, you can do this. Do what you need to do to make it through this. Do what you need to do. I considered what I needed to do. You have only yourself to rely on, but you know a lot. You live on an island, which is basically just a bigger raft that doesn't move. You've picked up so much information. You know enough to survive this. You know you do. You, on your own, are strong enough to survive. I took a deep breath, which held just a trace of lingering shudder, and I let it out. I would do this. I would be my own resource. I would get through this whichever way I could. Starting immediately, I would do what was necessary to stay hopeful, to believe I would survive. Something grabbed my hand and I screamed. 27. It's me, Max let go, and I turned toward him. You're back. I almost told him I thought he was gone forever, but didn't see what good that would be, especially when he looked worse than death. A sense of relief rushed over me. How long had I been out? He held a hand to his head. That was an easy answer. A long time. The line was gone, so was his life jacket. He held on the raft and pulled himself upright. He struck a hand in the raft. It's really leaky. I nodded, feeling guilty. I'm so sorry I put you in the water. I just thought you weigh less. Together we'd sink. Yeah, I thought for sure he'd be pissed about being in the water, but was glad that he agreed it was a smart thing to do. I was glad he was back, calm and rational, just in time, just when I was in danger of losing it. He said, "We need to fix it." I know that. I did. How? He pointed to a pocket in the raft. There should be a patch kit in there. But we need to empty the raft first and then find the leak. I felt in the pocket and pulled out a small pouch. Inside I found a little tube of sealant, some small patches of the same rubber as the raft, and a small sheet of instructions. Scanning them, I figured out what I needed to do. We need to tie those down, Max said, pointing to the Carousel commander and the baler. Then he pointed at his ditty bag. Put that around your waist. I just sat there. It was his bag if something happened. If heaven forbid we got split up, it was his bag. It should stay with him. He said do it. Taking his bag, I slipped the bungee cord around my waist. I knew what he said next. My heart still sunk when I heard the words. Now you need to get out. I didn't answer. I'm right here. I won't let anything happen. You need to get out so we can flip this over and fix it. Taking a deep breath, I put my foot over the side and started to slide out of the raft and into the water. Then I locked my elbows over the edge, refusing to go farther. My weight on the other side of the empty raft made it flip over, trapping me underneath. I screamed and grabbed for the raft and pushing it up. Get off! Get it off! Get it off! Even though for the moment I could breathe just fine within the pocket of air between me and the capsized raft, the feeling of my legs just hanging there, trendy was more than I could take. Get it off me! I screamed. I couldn't stand anymore, and I couldn't wait for Max. Instead, I shoved with all my might, throwing the raft off me. As I did, the ditty bag attached to my arm slipped it off. I grabbed for it, catching it by the bottom. Red and green and purple and yellow and orange dots rained down around me, so pelting me Skittles. No! I scrambled, splashing as I tried to grab them, but they were everywhere, sinking. How could I have forgotten to close the bag? In a frenzy, I scooped water and managed to get two yellow, a green, and a purple. I dropped them back in the ditty bag and searched for more. Nothing. They had sunk. Holding on the raft with one hand, slapping at the water with the other, I blubbered. As part of me cursed the carelessness that had just lost us all from the food we had, and another part was just pissed that I hadn't eaten them all when I had the chance. I blubbered as part of me cursed the carelessness that had just lost us all the food we had, and another part was just pissed that I hadn't eaten them all when I had a chance. Sniffling, I wiped in my nose, nearly jumping on my skin at the sudden streak of pain. Touching it again gently, my piercing was hot to the touch, and it burnt, and it hurt like hell. Great. Max said nothing but the bag or the Skittles. Nothing but the bag or the Skittles. Instead, he stated exactly what I was thinking, the one thing that mattered so much more than the stupid candy. I hope the pack kid is still in there. Chapter 28. Inhaling a shudder, I looked inside the ditty bag, hoping to hell I hadn't lost the patch kid. I sighed with relief when I saw it. I knew I had to patch the raft. My hand shook as I fought a rising panic, trying not to think about what might be in the water. Anything could sneak up on me, hurt me, eat me. I read about many victims of shark attacks that didn't even feel like the actual bite. They had just the sensation of something bumping them. Only after they got out of the water, if they survived, did they see the holes in their wetsuits and the bite marks on their skin. Because most sharks take a bite of humans and didn't much care for the taste. Most sharks. Tigers didn't give a crap. Food was food. I squinted and looked around me. The surface of the water was blue, a shiny mirror reflecting the sun. I wasn't exactly sure how to find the leak. I thought maybe if I pushed the raft up part way, slid under it, and dripped down water from the baler, then I could see where the water came from. I pulled myself up on the one side of the upside down raft, forcing the other side to tip up. I took the baler and filled it, then tossed the water up on the back side as I watched underneath for any water dripping. The first 10 times I saw nothing. I was getting too tired to keep doing it. Then finally I saw a drip. I finally filled the baler again, aiming for the same area. The water came through. Max, I see it. Once I'd seen the pin prick hole, it appeared so obvious I wondered how I missed it before. I got out from under the raft and clambered part way up the raft and found the leak. Carefully I squeezed some of the glue stuff and stuck the patch on. Nice job, said Max. Then I slid back into the water and bubbled there, trying not to lose my mind. There was an emergency valve. I blew into that until the raft seemed completely inflated. I needed to crawl back inside so bad, wet and shivering. I wanted to get out of the water, but Max made me wait a little bit more, just to make sure the patch held. Okay, he said finally. I had to shove the raft back over, so I held both hands on both edges. 1, 2, 3. I grunted and shoved. The raft went up on its edge and started to flip, just as a gust of wind caught hold, rolling the raft end over end, like a ring on the floor away from me. No! We watched helplessly as the raft finally came to a stop, right side up, about 50 yards away. Max wasn't strong enough. I would have to swim for it. Chapter 29. On my stomach, I started to stroke with my arms as I kicked, but I didn't like the water coming up in my face, and the ditty bag on my arms hampered my process, so I flipped over on my back. Even as a kid, I had done okay on my back. I breathed out. That was better, much better. I didn't feel like anything was dangling. But I also couldn't see where I was going and could only guess. I pulled with my arms and kicked for a count of 10, then stopped to turn and see where the raft was. And doing that 3 or 4 times, I realized I wasn't even gaining on the raft. I might even be losing. If I did the donkey paddle, which seemed even slower than my backstroke had been. So I did the dog paddle, which seemed even slower than my backstroke had been. Max was close behind me and called out, "You need to swim on your stomach. Just aim for the raft, hold your breath, and go." I didn't want to. Then he asked exactly what I'd been asking myself. Do you want to be stuck out here without the raft? No. I took the dilly bag off my wrist and put the bungee cord around my neck. Sitting the dilly bag on my back, it was very tight, almost constricting, but at least it would stay put while I swam. Turning back on my stomach, I took a deep breath, put my head in the water, and did a pathetic front crawl as fast and far as I could until I had to breathe. Then I paused, floated for a bit, just to the edge of panic, and then went again. I swore, when I get out of this, I will learn to swim properly. How stupid, to not know how to swim. Everyone knew how to swim. I paused, floated again. Did the raft seem closer? No, with no weight in it, the raft was cruising along much faster than I was. If I didn't hurry, it would be out of reach before I knew it. I adjusted the ditty bag, held my breath, and stuck my face in the water. My legs and arms were strong. I could do the strokes, but rhythmic breathing, I could never get the rhythmic breathing part. I tried and tried through swim lesson after swim lesson. I stopped again and bobbled, too weary to be panicked at the dangling of my limbs. My breaths were deep and ragged, and my arms and legs burned. The raft was about 20 yards off, so I had gained. But I had to keep going. I had to make it to the raft. I had to make it. I had to. I sucked in a breath and went, pulling as hard as I could with my arms as my legs kicked under until they threatened to fall off. My breath was used up. It was time to surface. I stuck my head up, trying to swim that way, but it didn't work. Still, I kept stroking and kicking as I took another breath and stuck my head in again. Make it, make it, make it, make it. My lungs were ready to burst, but I kept going. My arms and legs burning, but I couldn't do it anymore. I hope the raft was there. Hoped it was within reach because I couldn't swim anymore. I was spent. I dropped, lifting my head to suck in sweet air. I hoped the raft was there. Where it had to be. Was it there? I opened my eyes to see. Alright, we're gonna stop there today. Because I don't have a lot of time to do stuff today. Yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. I was gonna read more. I really feel like reading more, but I'm tired again. We'll finish this book someday. We'll probably finish it tomorrow. You can go to my Twitch account. We'll talk there. I upload every Wednesday. You can go there. You have to be there if you want to see me. Other than that, you comment below or you watch me read. Thank you for watching this. Come back another time. Thank you. Bye.